On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors return home tonight from their road trip, and it could be a farewell. We will dig into our feelings regarding the potential final games in Toronto for Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, hell, maybe even Pascal Siakam, though I doubt it. We will then cleanse the palate and distract us from all of the tension and anger and fear and all of the stuff that's caught up with the deadline and run through some wonderful mailbag questions from you, the listeners. It's all coming up with Katie Heindl today on Locked On Raptors. Thanks so much for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1337 of Locked On Raptors for Wednesday, February the 8th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 9 seasons on various platforms. You can find all of my work over on Twitter at WoodleySean. You can follow, subscribe to, rate, and review the podcast for free on your favorite podcast apps. And of course, we are on YouTube. Please go hit the big fat red subscribe button on the YouTube channel and support the show. It makes me feel very good. It helps boost the algorithm, all of that stuff. It's very much appreciated when you go ahead and do that. Also appreciated today are our friends over at LinkedIn, bringing you today's show. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, on today's show, it's a grim one. It could be a grim one. The Raptors play the Spurs tonight, and this could be a farewell. The Raptors, of course, have been on the road for a couple of weeks. You're going to get some home cooking. That's nice to see. But it could be one last little stop in Toronto for Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. Who the hell knows who else it could be? And maybe this is a bit of a swan song, a farewell, a Viking funeral game. So we're going to talk about that at the top. We got lots of mailbag questions too, looking at the deadline, looking at the second half of the season or the stretch run after the deadline. But first, we got to bring in Katie Heindl, who was with me last night on a panel at the Rivoli in Queen Street on Queen Street West. It was a great time. We got to chat with lots of lovely folks who listened to the show. Hello to Dave and God, I'm missing names. Simon was there and Brian. Lots of great people were chatting last night and more. Katie, how the hell are you?
I'm great. Our chats were a little different, but I'm great. I'm good. I feel a little bit sleepy. I'm in full slob mode. So
Yep.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Me
to
too.
go.
Look, you might hear the rasp in my voice today. We went after the panel thing to go watch the LeBron James record setter. That was a lot of fun, but as it turns out, when you live in Hamilton, you get home late when you stay out past midnight, and so I'm running on like 5 hours sleep. It's fine. We're here. We're excited. The deadline will drive us through because we're all very excited for all the trades. Katie, let's start with tonight. Raptors Spurs. Not much to preview in the game. The Spurs stink. The Raptors stink marginally less. But the obvious sort of elephant in the room is this could be the final game in Toronto for various members of the Toronto Raptors, various members of the Toronto Raptors championship team from 2019. Bit of end of an era vibes going around. We still don't know exactly who is going to move or if anyone will in fact move. Seems like the writing's on the wall. Seems as though the bidding around the league is pretty hot for a lot of these guys. But just, we did this 2 years ago on the morning of the deadline where everyone thought Kyle Lowry was for sure getting traded. It was the night after that Denver Nuggets win, the last, hey, amazing, this was so fun. Kyle did like an hour-long media availability and then didn't get traded. Do you think looking at a potential buildup of sad and morose feelings only to be disappointed or perhaps pleased by the fact that there is no trade tomorrow? Where are you at, Katie? Where's your head at going into what will be a feelings-heavy night for Toronto Raptors fans, I'm sure?
I'm sorry to say I feel pretty removed from this one.
Damn.
Yeah, not in like
Fred VanVleet, your boy! I think your very first episode on this show, like 6 years ago, we talked in depth about your love of Fred VanVleet. This is, yeah.
I mean, with Fred, I will preface it, and I guess this goes for everyone who's been mentioned as like could be moving. I think that there's an impasse, at all of their careers right now, whether that's them staying with the team or leaving. And I think whatever happens, especially in somebody like Fred's case, new representation, looking at like new contract, maybe has grown out of a certain kind of role with the team. And again, I do think that could go for all of them. Whatever happens will be probably good for them. This is kind of like the bittersweet part. Kyle Lowry was different because it felt more the end of a career, right?
Yeah.
Which I hate saying, but like it did feel a little bit like that.
Sure.
And like certainly an era. And these guys have had their era in Toronto too, but there's still so much more ahead of them. So maybe that's why I feel okay about whatever could happen. And like as we said last night, there's still a good chance that nothing happens. So I'm trying not to. I'm doing the opposite of what we usually do, which is like try not to work myself into anything until it goes down.
It's very hard not to work yourself into a tizzy this week, I must say, with all the stuff that's flying around nonstop. I think I'm with you a little bit in that it doesn't feel quite as somber and sort of heavy as the potential of a Kyle deal felt. Kyle's the best Raptor of all time, so there's just like added heft to it all. But there, you know, that Tampa season was a bummer for a lot of reasons, and a big reason was it kind of felt like it robbed the Raptors, and you know, you go back to the bubble as well, but it kind of felt like it robbed the Raptors of a proper finish to that era. And that deadline, it kind of just felt all of a sudden everyone gets sick. They miss the entire month of March basically of having no good players out there. They lose all the games, and it was all of a sudden, oh damn, like this is happening now. They have to stare down the barrel of moving on from the best player the franchise has ever seen. And it didn't feel natural. It felt like it was just kind of thrust upon the team in an unexpected way. Whereas this, I mean, the season's been such a slog and a disappointment to this point that I do think there's just this sort of eagerness to change up the vibe and change up the mix. And, you know, that's going to have to come at the expense of moving out longstanding Raptors in all likelihood. But I do feel like maybe people are more braced for change than they were a couple of years ago when the Kyle thing happened. It's a bit of a strange one here, Katie, because, you know, I'm curious for you, how much of wanting to see stuff at the deadline is just a byproduct of just kind of wanting to see some fresh blood and some like new faces and just kind of rejuvenate the roster. I know for me, I'm just kind of interested in like talking about some new guys and like new lineup combinations and new personalities that we get to know. It feels as though, I know this team hasn't been together that long, but it does feel like things have stagnated a little bit, just in terms of like just the day-to-day joy of watching these guys in and out. It's, you know, felt a little bit hollow this year. Are you excited just for the proposition of new dudes in the mix?
No, because I feel like that's grass, and this is just for me. Like, I just feel like it's such a bloodthirsty way to approach. But you're right. I think that is actually how most people approach the trade deadline, and why it's so exciting to so many people is because it's like everybody loves new things to them in the NBA, right? And that's like the entire point of the deadline, I think, as a fan. So sure. But I mean, I will lament a little, you know, the guy, like somebody like, I don't know, I think Otto's sane, of course, but like, I think I'm like, what about these guys? We haven't even got to talk about yet, you know, like in a really meaningful way. Yours different because you have to talk about it every single day. So I understand for you what the appeal is. But I don't know, like, I know, like, I feel like I'm familiar with a lot of other players around the league just for the way that I cover the NBA. So there's certainly, like, I know we'll get to this, like, kind of wish list players that it would be wonderful to see in Toronto. But I feel like no one is like a wow. Like, and I'm realizing I just sound so like I don't like a snob, like I can't be entertained by
I know all the basketball players already.
I don't mean it like that. Because I think the appeal is, of course, like seeing them in the mix and seeing them on this team and the way that they'll actually play for the Raptors, because it's going to be a lot different no matter who it is. So sure. Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not a proponent of making trades for the sake of making trades, because I think that's a way to get yourself in trouble. And like, if the offer's not there for a guy, then don't do it. Like, there's nothing forcing your hand here. I do kind of subscribe, though, to the idea that like change for the sake of change can be a good thing. And that's, I guess, what I've kind of settled on going into the deadline here. I don't really know what's going to happen. I've said OG, I think, is probably the move here, just as, you know, like a pure team building move or whatever. But I'll make my peace with whatever happens. I think I've come around to something's gotta happen just for the sake of something happening, to just inject something new, because it does feel like this season's been such a grind that it could use some fresh faces and good times. We're gonna come back on the other side and get to questions about potential fresh faces and good times. We got lots of great questions as well on the back part of the season, what to expect, play-in versus tanking all the way down to the Wemby zone. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Before we do that, however, got to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, which is the #1 place you should be going to hire if you are a small business owner or a hiring manager. It's really important that you nail your hires. In 2023, success all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the exact skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. No longer are you sifting through the needle in the haystack trying to find the one person who matches all of your requirements for whatever job you have open. Now, the needle comes to you. It's just like, hi, I'm right here. Pick me out. I'm right here. And it's just like a whole bunch of needles you're choosing from. That's the beauty of LinkedIn Jobs. It's no longer a haystack. It's a needle stack, and everyone's right there for you. I've totally riffed this piece of copy, but I think LinkedIn Jobs will enjoy it. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we continue on here with your first listen of the day here on Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Lots of mailbag questions here, Katie, to sift through. Lots of really good ones. Let's start with our pal Eric Morris at Epic Moppus, the most famous Tennessean Toronto Raptors fan there is. Eric asks, is there someone who wouldn't be the centerpiece of a trade that you'd like to see the Raptors trade for? A good vibes dude. We were discussing this last night, Katie. You made a really good point on the Raptors Republic panel, which everyone should have been at. Sorry you missed it. It was too good. It was really, really great. You failed if you didn't go. But you mentioned the idea of like a good faith move, just to sort of bring some sort of positive, happy energy into the mix for the Raptors at the deadline. I suggested a humble Malachi Flynn and Kem Birch for Terrence Ross trade. But that doesn't have to be your answer to this question. Katie, is there someone you'd like to see the Raptors go out and try to acquire as sort of not necessarily a big team building move, but more of a team spirit building move?
Your propaganda was very strong last night.
Lots of Terrence Ross love. Come back, Terry. We love you.
I will make a point. I like your take on the good faith move. Mine was kind of like, I went back to that Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, neglecting to give those guys another year. I mean, 2 years. And I feel like that would have been a good faith move. So like doing right by somebody who is very valuable to the franchise in a lot of other ways than just on the floor. So I do think that there could still be a good faith move to be made, whether between OG, Pascal, Fred, in them staying is what I mean by a good faith move.
Gotcha.
But I also do like your idea of a good faith move being someone, like bringing someone in who's going to be really valuable to the team. I hesitate because it's like, I think they tried to do that with Thad and with Otto, and for various reasons, it hasn't worked, or it like wasn't enough. So I would actually be like wary to bring in just like some person. It's a lot of weight on someone's shoulder. That said, there's a great man out there by the name of Serge Ibaka.
Yeah.
Who just hasn't really. Then again, maybe he's like, no, why now? Now you need me. Now you're desperate. Anyway, like I'll put that potential out the window. But he hasn't really, I think, found a fit or like a comfortable place that he looks himself in since he left Toronto. So Serge could be one. I mean,
that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Katie. I got to hop on the Serge thing because that's the move to me. Look, Serge Ibaka, Not really playing for the Bucks right now. Don't imagine he's going to figure into the long-term plans for that team, unfortunately, even though everyone should have Serge Ibaka in the Udonis Haslem role as just a team good times guy. I think the Raptors should call up the Bucks and say, hey, Malachi Flynn, you guys don't have a lot of ball handling. You guys are pretty weak on that stuff. You got 3 guys who can dribble basically on the whole team. Malachi Flynn doesn't do a whole lot, but he can dribble. What say we just flip a little Malachi Flynn for Serge Ibaka? Ibaka comes in, maybe plays sparingly down the stretch. Maybe he gives you 10 minutes as a backup center, which would probably be better than most of the backup center minutes they've gotten this season anyway. And you just get Serge Ibaka in the door once again, working for Sportsnet, doing How Hungry Are You, probably being on TV, being handsome everywhere, bring back all of his shows. Maybe I'm a prisoner of nostalgia and just want to keep on watching the guys that I like or liked at important times in my life. But Serge Ibaka rules. I would love to see him back in Toronto in some capacity, just as one of those on the side. You know, this doesn't change our lives big time types of moves, but I feel like that would be a good way to sort of calm down the wolves in the fan base who are very angry and out for blood. Let's continue on here. Katie, this next question here comes from Jeff Lowe asking, with such a light schedule coming up, how can the Raptors remain in striking distance of the number 1 overall pick? Seems almost impossible not to make the play-in. I want to just sort of spin this question around a little bit and just say, Katie, you know, the prospect of the Raptors going on a second half run, I think is very real. If you look at the schedule, it is easy coming up in the next 10 games or so. There's a world in which in 10 games time, they're like 33 and 32. It's that light in terms of, you know, quality of competition. I'll also throw in this question that also kind of ties into all this from our pal Freddie Rivas, who we saw last night. Hi, Freddie. He asked if the Raptors make a fun run and have an entertaining end of the season, playing exciting first round maybe, should pro tankers be banned from watching? Just your general philosophy on the idea of the Raptors making a second half run here. Do you feel like it'd be a missed opportunity to get more lottery balls, or do you find value in the idea of the Raptors turning this thing around and actually bringing some good spirit and joy to the whole mix with a nice little second half run here?
This is tough because like right now there's still equal distance between like, yeah, falling out completely and being like increasing their odds in the lottery and yet being like maybe not even a play-in team, right? Like probably a play-in team. I will also say that they have tended to play to their competition.
Yeah, that's true.
That could blow up in their faces down the
They do play Dwayne Casey's Pistons coming up twice.
Stretch.
So
yeah. Exactly. I will believe it when I see it. I mean, generally, I don't think it's wise to just like if you're going into a rebuild year with a team to rely on the lottery solely because it's a crapshoot and a gamble and you never know what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
And you've already gotten your luck. You got Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, you've had
the rabbit's foot up your butt already.
Yeah, like you've had your high hit. Obviously, it's a very appealing lottery this year. But then again, on the side of the play-in, we talked about this last night. It's kind of like what for? Yeah. You know, like what is it going to give you? Maybe other than a bit more experience in a playoff situation for some of your younger players, probably just namely Scotty. What is kind of the purpose of it? Maybe if I could see it if they're on a run and they're kind of going into the playoffs and like the momentum is high, spirits have somehow gotten much better and it's just like a total vibes turnaround. Maybe also they add some people today or tomorrow, and that helps too. Then I could see, you know, something like a playoff run, even if it is just like a first round exit, feeling like the momentum that this team needs to push itself into next season. That is also exactly what happened last year. Right? So, yeah, all to say, I don't think it's smart to just be like, let's just tank for the lottery. And I don't know that tankers can be banned because there are freaks out there who enjoy watching basketball every kind of way. That way is one of them. You know, power to you. But I fundamentally disagree with you.
Yeah. I think this is honestly kind of a no-lose situation for the Raptors. Like, if they go on a run and make the play-in, maybe even make it into the first round of the playoffs proper, yes, you'll look at the end result being like, first round exit. Wow, that stunk. But like, if that happens, that means we've had a damn good time in the next 2.5 months between now and the end of the regular season. Like, that means something really fun has happened. And to me, watching basketball is about having fun and enjoying the team you watch. And I feel like there's a lot of value in 2.5 months of an entertaining run for a team that, again, has Scotty Barnes on it already. This is not a team that's at risk of being stuck on the wheel of mediocrity because they finished 11th or 10th or whatever. This is a team with upward mobility already kind of baked into the pie. And so, yeah, if you go on a run, that means something really awesome has happened. If you don't, that means you get a really good shot at jumping up in the lottery, in what is a very good lottery. To me, there's no downside here. I do think playoff experience is valuable. I think single elimination games are never not super fun just as an observer. And if you can get into the playoffs proper and give a team a run, like, that's valuable. The playoffs last year, as much as it sucked to not have Scotty Barnes for a chunk of it with injury, but like we saw, Precious Achiuwa really succeeded in the playoffs. That was really valuable. Scotty Barnes getting time to take over playoff games, that matters. Even Pascal Siakam getting proof of concept of like his style of play, his adapted style of play with the playmaking and the scoring and the mid-range, like that's playoff proof basketball. He was incredible for much of that series against the Sixers, and that proof of concept is very important when you're building your team out. Getting a look at what things look like in the pressure cooker of the playoffs is a good thing inherently. And so I don't think they're going to just tank the season. If they try and lose a bunch of games anyway, like they have all season long, then we're just in the same spot we are now. But if they go on a bit of a run here, it means we've had a pretty damn good time in the next couple of months, and there's lots of positive benefits to it as well. And you'll still probably be in the lottery because you'll lose in the play-in, or you'll have the 15th or 16th pick, which is not a bad place to be necessarily anyway. Any parting shots on that before we move on here, Katie?
No.
All right, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll dig into questions about Pascal Siakam. If he's asked to go to the All-Star game, does he go, or does he go to the beach? Katie, the resident vacation knower, will have good thoughts on that, I'm sure. We also got a question from our pal Jay Rich, who's a regular question asker, about the goals of the team and what the deadline might tell us about that. We'll get to that in just one sec. Before we do that, got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about FanDuel as well. They're our new betting sponsor, our partner here at Locked On. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better because they have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download the FanDuel app now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 this weekend with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to whoever's going to score a touchdown. You get the same game parlay. What a great way to have fun with the Super Bowl. Maybe you don't care about either team involved, but you have a little money down on that same game parlay. That's a fun time. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL and of Locked On. And we continue on here with your first listen of the day. Katie Heindl, round it out. We got mailbag questions galore. Apologies to those who sent in questions that we're not going to get to, but there's a lot of questions. You guys really did a really good job here. Maybe I'll save some for later in the week. This one here from our pal Jay Rich. If the Raptors don't make a move at the deadline, how do we best interpret the front office's goals for this season versus the future? So, like, what do you think inaction tomorrow at the deadline will tell us about where the front office is in terms of planning going forward and general philosophy? What say you, Katie?
I mean, we don't know. We never
Right.
will know. Let's preface it with that. But I think if they take a swing and, one of like either Anunoby or Fred VanVleet go, then you're seeing this basically, I think, an admission that we are like making a change of tack in terms of direction. Like we're rerouting our course and what we thought it would be at the start of this season. If there's a move like Gary, Trent Jr., I'm not even really mentioning Pascal Siakam because I just don't.
He's not. I really would be stunned if he's moved. All the reporting from all the insiders says he's not on the table.
So then that's like, maybe a lesser, like you're not doing a 180 in a change of direction, but you are admitting that things have not worked as planned, or there needs to be an adjustment. I think any move, and we've said this so many times already, but like any move will signal some progress, because right now it does feel like there's no clear direction. I also said this last night, and I feel like I've said this many times, but I think we have the sense that the franchise is a bit rudderless at the moment. Nothing is really prioritized, like, because they've tried to prioritize so many things in the fallout of like not being able to run it back, then not being able to land Giannis, then having some disruptions that did really set them back. I forgot that Masai had said that Tampa season set them back, like, we say 5 years,
something like that. Yeah.
And I believe that, for a lot of other reasons we don't really get to see from our side of things. So I think any move will signal like, okay, we hear you. We also acknowledge that like things are not working, and we're trying to retool this. But I still would like to hear, and they'll do a presser, right? If they do a move, what they, even though it's like, this is just the talking points that you're saying out loud, but like what the direction is, because it's one thing to say we're focused on development, because if you focus on development, you're not really focusing on winning in the same way, because you need to allow for failure, and you need to allow for like growing pains, and kind of like cratering of progress at times before it then like shoots up again, like as we saw with somebody like Pascal. But if you're like, we're just winning, then you're trying to build your team a different way. But at the beginning of the season, they said we're focused on winning, but we're focused on development. And I just don't see, it doesn't seem like they've been able to do those two things simultaneously. So to pick a direction in either, or I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I would imagine Masai or Bobby will speak tomorrow regardless of if they make a move or not, just because they usually will kind of do a debrief on what their thinking was. And I think that's as interesting as anything that could happen tomorrow, like just sort of getting it, because we haven't heard from them all season long. We don't know how they feel about things. I'm sure they're not pleased, but like, we don't really know. Did they think this was kind of part of the experience? They were going to be maybe leaning on having internal growth, and it didn't happen. And like, is this just like part of the deal? It's interesting. I think what's really fascinating is if they don't do anything, I think it gets a lot harder to parse what their intentions are, because it could be a signal that, hey, we believe in this core, we believe in the upward mobility that a Scotty or a Precious provides us, and that this core can work just with more time and a little fine tuning. Or it could be, we're going to keep our powder dry and maybe try to do something bigger in the offseason. The deadline is not always the best time for big time maneuvers. You keep guys under contract. You sign a Fred or a Trent. Obviously, that will come with a 6-month lead time until you can trade them again. But I do wonder if it suggests that the offseason will be the time for their wheeling and dealing. I think they have to get a head start on it now. Like, I think waiting to get that sort of those wheels in motion could be pretty risky. But especially with Fred and Gary, if you lose them for nothing, that's a pretty devastating blow. But yeah, it's I think if they do make a deal, it becomes a little clearer. Like, okay, they're pivoting this into the Scotty Pascal era, and they're going to try to reassemble the roster around them, I would assume. But if they do nothing, that's where there's all sorts of questions, and everyone will surely be very, very angry if nothing happens by the end of tomorrow. Let's get to one last question here. This one comes from our pal Jay at B-Ball Thinking. If Adam Tilber taps Pascal for the All-Star game, should Siakam go, or is beach R&R just too good at this point? We know Pascal is a man who's very good on a beach. He loves a sea star. He loves one of those little over the water huts. I think probably he would vibe with that. Thoughts on if Pascal is asked to go to the All-Star game, should he go? I believe he made comments yesterday suggesting that he would be pretty all right with some vacation, as he should be, considering he's played 7,000 minutes a night for 2 straight seasons. But thoughts, Katie, on if Pascal should go? I mean, it's up to him, obviously. We can't tell him what to do, but what would you like to see?
As someone who is going to be on a plane flying to California when the trade deadline gets its most hectic, I think he should go on vacation.
Yes, go on vacation.
Like, genuinely, I do feel like that moment has kind of come and gone,
Mhm.
you know, and it's a little bit of a consolation in something that is important to players and is like very prideful. I think it's much different to be selected by like either your peers and the fans and the media in that first round or even as a reserve than to be now like given this sort of honorarium.
Yeah.
You know? Of like,
So, well, we didn't really want you here, but now we need you. You want to
Yeah.
come on. Come
In a way,
hand
like,
a little bit.
that could be a great opportunity for a younger person in the league. But I think, you know, Pascal should probably just like take it in stride and hit the beach.
I agree, especially if any of his pals have been dealt by this time tomorrow or the 3 o'clock tomorrow. He's gonna want to go and reflect, recuperate, get some alone time, get some time with his thoughts. I think. Yeah, it'd be nice if he was an all-star, for sure. It's always nice for the legacy to have that extra all-star tick on your basketball reference page. But ultimately, everyone knows Pascal Siakam is an all-star level player, an all-NBA player. That's like not up for debate. He's incredible. It's silly that he didn't make the all-star team, considering his numbers. He's like the first player ever averaging 25, 8, and 6 who hasn't made the all-star team. That's part of the inflation of stats around the league, I'm sure, a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty silly. But hey, you know, it gives you an opportunity to relax and not have to travel to Salt Lake City in the middle of February. Maybe that's all right.
I mean, I will. I'll be there.
Hey, I hope you have a great time because Utah is very pretty. There's no doubt about that. It's a pretty state. I was there not long ago. It's
great. I've never been in the winter time.
Go and do some skis. Get them skis out, Katie.
You know, I'm not
go to the Olympic Park and learn some moguls or something along those lines. I look forward to Katie on the Slopes, fun web series sponsored by Locked On Raptors. We're gonna wrap it there. Katie, anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Nope.
I'll promote for you. Basketball Feelings. It's great. You did a podcast yesterday with Mike Prada, who we all love.
I did. Makes us laugh. He's a great guy.
Great guy. Very fun voice to listen to. I always enjoy his tones. And everyone go subscribe to Basketball Feelings. I'm a paid subscriber, and I'm a very happy customer, so go do that. Also, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, follow, go to YouTube, subscribe to the show as well. It's all very much appreciated when you support the show in the tiny little ways we ask you to do so. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Jamar Hines is going to pop on. We're going to talk about Raptors Spurs as a bit of a time killer as we wait for the deadline to explode into all sorts of nonsense. I'll also be doing a live show tomorrow around 3:30 probably, just depending on time and situation. But when the deadline has passed, we'll be firing up a live show on the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel, so you can go and watch it there. And we'll commiserate or celebrate and talk about new Raptor Serge Ibaka and how great it is and all that stuff on tomorrow's live show. Go make your second listen of the day now, Locked On Leafs, as they're doing a wonderful job over there covering your Toronto Maple Leafs as they are back into the second half of the season post-All-Star break. And yeah, that'll be it. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Enjoy the Viking funeral, everybody. Bye-bye.